Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, I'll just hit you with a quick little intro. And then, yeah, I have a couple of questions for you. Like, I was like, you should be hosting the podcast.
What are yours? I get to be your guest today. You get to lead the whole thing.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm interviewing my first podcast host. I was like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. We're so new at this.
My style of podcasting is like, we show up and we have a conversation.
Yeah.
That's literally,
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. And I've been trying to do some intros because, wow, everybody has such incredible accolades. And not only are we taking their knowledge and education and sharing that with the world, but let's highlight all of the time that these people have put into their craft. But making the intros is almost hard because everybody has done such incredible things for the world that as I'm trying to make the intros, I'm like, okay, don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. I'm like, these people have worked their whole lives for this. So yeah, hopefully I did a decent job on yours because everything will be great. Everything with you, I was like, oh my God, she's incredible. I can't even put it in an intro.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
So yeah, I'll just rip you with a quick intro and then we can just keep the conversation flowing if that's okay with you. Sweet. Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone to the Saver Brain headquarters. My name is Kelsey Boyer and I'm super excited to be sitting in the studio today. Our guest is a physical therapist who specializes in neurological rehabilitation. She has a bachelor's in Health Science and Kinesiology, plus a master's in physical therapy. Inspired by her cousin's journey as a quadriplegic, she focuses on working with individuals with spinal cord injuries, stroke, Parkinson's, and other neurological diagnoses. She opened her own clinic, Symphony Rehabilitation, in 2015 and is recognized for her innovative approach and leadership in the field. She continues to drive change in concussion management through her work and mentorship program, Concussion Nerds. She advocates for a holistic approach to healthcare, emphasizing self-care for clinicians and personal growth. Let's give a round of applause, warm welcome to Natasha Wilch.
You.
I give my own applause. One day I'll have some, I'm sure there's some button.
There's a machine. I don't have it either. But it's you can press it and it claps or cheers. Oh yeah, no, it exists.
One day I'll figure it out with the mixer of applause and air horns, but it right now, I think if I touch it, it'll blow up like a bomb and I'll break it.
That would be my luck as well, honestly.
Yeah, but no, I'm super excited to have you on the show and pick your brain and, share all of your knowledge with the community and the world. There was so much I wanted to dive into, but I think the best place to start and something that's very critical of knowing in a trusted doctor, is why did you choose neurology?
It's that, it's that thing of I didn't choose it, it chose me. And I know we hear that all the time, but it's so true. I had a colleague recently have me read a book, and because I'm always like, follow, I'm a passionate individual. When you find your passion, blah, 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 all these great things happen. And I realized I didn't get into neuro and concussion because I was passionate about it at all. It kind of fell in my lap and then my passion grew. I started down the path of physical therapy as a whole because of my cousin and because I spent a lot of time with him. And so when he talked about the people who were hugely impactful in his healing journey, he always talked about the physical therapists and the occupational therapists. But I actually thought I was going to be, I think every person that goes into PT school, I thought I was going to work in sport. And my mentor at the time was the physio for the Vancouver Canucks. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And now I giggle. So it's I work with athletes, but I work with them for their brains.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things I then in physio school, we had these week-long, I guess you'd call them breakout courses. And one of the neuro instructors who she became my mentor led this week-long course, and watching her in action and hearing the impact she had on her clients' lives blew me away.
Wow.
And I had a week vacation coming up, right after she taught her section in our course. And it was the 1 week UBC gave you for holidays in physio school a year. And instead of going away, I went and shadowed her at her clinic and fell in love with it even more. And then it just so happened, the first job I got out of physio school they put me as the lead physio on this brand new, like, general 6-bed, like, general rehab unit in the hospital. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
You're like, me? You want me?
Like, I was like, and then it started with just hips and knees. And I was like, okay, I can do this. Then I started getting strokes. I felt so bad because I'm supposed to be the expert that's helping you rehab to go home. Said, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. And that feels like shit. And so I didn't enrolled in a course. Like, I got my first stroke patient on like a Monday and I enrolled in a freaking course on the weekend because I was like, this is not okay.
Yeah, you're like, this needs to change right now.
Oh my God. And that course happened to be taught by that instructor that was also taught that week long in my physio school. And I did that course and she told me to apply for a job at her clinic after, which at the time they'd never hired a new grad before. And so it was terrifying. But they took a chance on me and I got this amazing neuro mentorship right out of physio school that it was unbelievable. And there's something about, I work mostly with obviously concussion today. I still love working with spinal cord as well, and some stroke, but there's something, even with the concussions, like the stories you get to hear about the impact you've had on someone being able to live their life.
Totally.
Those are the stories that drive me every day. Those stories drive me, and the stories of hearing the shit care people get. Also,
no, literally, I just got chills when you said that, because that is the reality, is these people are just trying to get themselves back to living a fulfilled life. And it's something they can't just buy. And it's, working with someone who actually gives a shit about them to get that back is huge.
I went through a whole rebrand process a couple years ago. And as part of that process, the company I'd hired interviewed clients that had worked with me. And she came back to me after and she's like, Natasha, she's like, I've never cried so much doing these interviews before in my life. She's like, my assistant was in tears. She's like, the things and the answers we got to our questions were nothing like we expected. She's like, the things people were so grateful to have had you to be part of their journey for were things like being able to be outside for hours and be okay, being able to go to dinner with their family, being able to return to work, being able to go back and drive that big rig or ride their bike again or play with their kids without symptoms. Or a client who told me once that she never thought she'd be able to have children just because of her health. And we got her to a place where she could now, and she emailed me when she was pregnant.
Stop.
Those are the stories. Those are the reasons. And I think sometimes as healthcare providers who, when you see so much over and over again that you forget. I always say I want to help create that bridge to understanding. You see someone as a symptom and you forget to link that to life.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear, it's seeing all the objective outcomes and the changes in the graphs are cool. But if it doesn't change in their life, none of it fucking matters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I almost cry even just listening to you, because it's, it is real life shit. And it is heavy things that people have to carry with them. And they're just searching, hoping that somebody will help them carry this even a little. Just it's envisioning carrying a big freaking potato sack of, it's full of potatoes. They're carrying it. It's so heavy. They're starting to drop them all over the place. And then, you come in and you're like, let me help you. Let me help you. Let me help you. Yeah. And it's so cool. And it's awesome to hear that, it did choose you. It really did choose you. And it's really, inspiring to hear how passionate you are about it, because as, somebody who could have been and still probably could be one of your patients, I searched for someone like you to help me with a sense of hope. And, it shouldn't be like that, but unfortunately it is. And it's really cool that you feel like it did choose you and you ran with it. You're like, I want to help these people. I want to lend a helping hand. And when I was looking through, being inspired by everything that you do, it was a plethora of a toolkit to offer the community. And I was like, okay, one, when does this woman sleep? Two, how does she do all of this? And would you mind like taking us through kind of all of the ways that, if I were to walk or like, I guess like walk into your clinic or contact you via Instagram, like what are some ways that you could help me?
Yeah. So let's break this into two groups. So let's break this into like I always say someone on a healing journey versus if you're a clinician, because there's definitely like two avenues to what I do. So let's go healing journeys. First of all, I say healing journey because, and not everyone loves me when I say this, I hate the term concussion survivor.
It's terrible.
To me, you are linking the concussion with your identity.
Yes.
And that is 1000% doing you a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
So I started changing all our terminology to saying like, I'm on a healing journey. I'm on a concussion healing journey. Like that's how I refer to it always.
We need the applause button.
So if you're on a healing journey, there's a multitude of ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, holy crap.
Okay. So let's start with the free stuff. Cause like there's definitely different levels to like work in like, so let's start with the free stuff. So we are constantly coming out with like workbooks, or my Instagram is the plethora, or the podcast. So I'd say my Instagram, my podcast, workbooks that we come out with. I do a free monthly call for people on a healing journey every month where I like teach on a concept and then we discuss things. Really, we discuss life shit, to be honest. That's my free stuff. That's the constant.
Okay.
And the next level up is I have a membership. So it's called Concussion Mini School Plus, the membership. I'm not very fancy with names.
I feel like it is what it is. You know what you're getting.
Yeah. And we call it that because it's kind of like, I didn't think I was ever going to do a membership again. But basically what it is you come in and there's a back-end platform and it's almost like Netflix. Like there's a video library of different topics. There's things that are clinical, like dysautonomia and exercise intolerance and that crap. And then there's things that are more mindset beliefs, like how we reframe our mindset, how we change goals. So we had a huge episode on sex and intimacy, which was probably one of the favorite calls to date, honestly, like mind blown. So we talk about the shit that a lot of these places, that a lot of memberships don't feel comfortable going to. I have no problem going there, and I'll share why I go there too all the time. But so then you have all these episodes, and then we do 2 live calls a month. So we do 2 live calls a month in the membership as well. So it's like Q&A, open floor discussion, come together, and then there's a community. To give context, it's $14 a month for that membership.
No, that's so helpful. It's like the money. I mean, you probably see it all the time. The money side of things and the financial burden is very hard when you're trying just to, grab onto that hope too.
Yeah.
Like find anything that helps, for everyone listening. It's like, yeah, like make note of those free things and start there.
Start there.
Yeah, start there. And then
like the membership.
Yeah, $14 a month.
And then I do virtual consults for people like around the world too. So I would say a virtual consult is if you are feeling stuck and you're like, I don't know where to go. I don't do rehab virtually unless I've worked with you in person. But a consult is like, if you're stuck, like, let's work through, like, send me your stuff. Let me work through your case. Let's chart a path and a plan and give you some instant things for you to work on and guide you in your next step. So that's what a consult does. And then there's the chance to come work with me in my clinic or work with my team at my clinic. So that's my concussion intensives. So that's where you fly to Nanaimo, British Columbia. We spend a week together figuring out like root drivers of your symptoms, why they're still there. We rehab for a week. And then with a part of that, you have 3 months with me virtually after you spend the week with me to continue to support you in your healing. Because those changes that we just talked about, those happen once you're home.
Mm-hmm.
Those happen once you like reacclimatize to being home and start integrating things and continue to do the work. Mm-hmm. That's when those changes start to happen. And I want to be there to support you and guide you through that once you're home too. So on a healing journey, that's kind of the gambit of the things.
The queen of the brains is what it sounds like. I'm like, all hail the queen of the brains. Yeah, no, and I mean, everything that I was looking at, like, it's just like, it's one of those things that I'm like, I wish I knew this 7 years ago, like, it's like, these are the people that you want to find, that you hope to find, and it was so cool to just see everything that you were offering. So you find a treatment facility and you're like, oh, thank goodness. They're like, it's $10,000. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that money is coming in the way of me healing. You're like, it feels like fake paper money and I can't heal my brain because of monopoly money.
Yeah. Well, it's also the piece of why. So I've been in this like Fab over 40 contest, which I'm pretty sure I'm about to not make the next round.
Oh no, what are we gonna do?
I mean, like, I think I'm in 10th place right now. In the next 6 days, I need to be in first. Like,
oh, okay, we got that. Okay.
But part of the prize is prize money. And so what my goal was, I've always had this dream of starting it exactly because of what you said. I've always had this dream of starting a charity. And the purpose of the charity is to provide bursary or scholarship funding, whatever term you want to use, to individuals on a healing journey who can't afford rehab because it's like money is the barrier. Let's have a process that we can fund you. And it doesn't mean that has to be, I always think that it doesn't mean you're funding my clinic. It's like, what do you need? And let's fund you in that process and be able to provide scholarships and bursaries to help with the healing journey. And so I've always wanted to start this charity. Starting a charity, I've learned, costs lots of dollars. You would know that.
I know, I'm always like, it's not what it seems.
No.
Like, it's not what it seems, and it's annoying that it's so hard.
Yeah. And I was just like, so I was like, if I had won this competition, part of the prize money was going to go towards funding the start of that nonprofit and that charity. And then we would come, and then obviously fundraising for the charity is a whole other fucking thing. But
yeah, it's a full-time job.
I was like, yeah, you get it. It's still a dream at some point for me, for sure.
For sure. That's honestly, I found a nonprofit that granted me $10,000 to go to my treatment. And when I started Save a Brain, that was definitely where we wanted to go. You know, I was like, let's financially support these people. And then we started learning about all of the hoops that we'd have to jump through to do so. And we were like, okay, that'll be like a long-term goal. In the meantime, what can we do? But it's like, yeah, I can't wait to see that happen one day, because that is needed. It is necessary, and the world will align it, and
it'll happen when it's supposed to.
It'll happen. And yeah, I guess it's just like, it is just one of those things that it's just so sad to see. And I'm sure you see it all the time, being the one to help heal these people. You're just like, the money, like, it's like,
it's totally that catch-22, because it's like, if I was a billionaire, or if I was like loaded and money wasn't an issue, I would still do this work. And I would do it for free. And I still have a family, and I still have bills to pay and staff to pay, that it's like, I can't not. Such a any person that does any sort of work that is a service-based work, I think goes through that like internal dilemma a little bit.
Yeah. You know, that's how you know you found the right care, because they're like, I would do it for free. And it's one of those things where, well, you wouldn't exist, and none of this stuff would exist unless you could do it as a job. So it's like, it's one of those things that, yeah, it's like a necessary evil.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to see everything that you've done with that, you know, that you're going to continue to do. And I mean, we'll all promote that. Let's get you to number one. Like,
it's been like on by Saturday, but we've we have even more stuff coming out in 2025. Like, we have some fun things that we're working on behind the scenes. We just launched a new workshop today on the podcast, actually, for clinicians. But because, yeah, so like there's that whole other stream I do for stuff for clinicians as well. And so we just kind of launched a new program for the clinicians today. And so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we have some fun things coming out in 2025 just to help, again, bring more awareness to our mission and the conversation and all the things.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, we're excited. 2025 is going to be a big year.
It's going to be for a lot of people.
It's going to be a good year. Yeah. We've been like staring on some stuff too, and I'm like, 2025, like 2024 was kind of shit, but I'm like,
yeah. 2020 to 2024 was shit. Let's be real for a second here.
Yeah. Like, it's turning. We're turning a new. And I mean, what off of like you just said, I'm curious, when you are educating clinicians, like, what are you, I guess, like teaching them, or like when they're signing up for your things, what's going down there?
Yeah. So it's always, for the longest time, I felt like I had to decide whether I was going to support clinicians or support healing journeys, because every time I had a coach, it was always like, you have to pick. And I was like, I can't.
Yeah. You pick.
Can't. And it became this point that it's like, for the clinicians the reason I support clinicians, I'm so passionate about supporting clinicians, is because I am one person. I can only help so many people because I am one person, and there's only so many hours in the day. But if I can teach clinicians the way that I approach concussion care. And it's like, I always say it's an integrated science approach. So 100% it is science-based and all this piece, but also I look at people through a very holistic lens, and we look at the mindset, we look at the lifestyle, we look at the psychology, we look at the spirituality, like we look at all these pieces, and we have a very strong foundational framework on how we move through and integrate and rehab the physiology piece. And I was like, if I can teach more clinicians to do what I do, then that's going to help thousands of people as opposed to just me being able to do it. And so my goal with clinicians I have a 6-month clinical mentorship program, which is the Concussion Nerds program. And that's very much what it is I teach an integrated science approach so that they can confidently assess and treat concussion clients and have that change and make those life impactful moments. Because what happens so often with clinicians is they do all these courses in these different areas, but it's very segmented. And no one teaches anyone how to integrate it all together. And that is the strength of what I do. And it's that multi-systems, multidisciplinary, all that piece approach. And so that is what I do. And so I have my 6-month mentorship program, which some people, it's an investment to do that program. Like you're with, but so what we launched today is a smaller half-day workshop for clinicians that it's like, you know what? Even if I can teach you the Concussion Nerds framework, and you apply that framework to the skills you already have, it's going to shift how you think and approach rehab and already start to make change. So this new workshop is starting to offer that for people who aren't ready to come in and then hang out with me for 6 months. We can give them something tangible and powerful that we know that if they apply that to their practice, it's going to shift their approach and their outcomes just in that itself. And it's significantly less expensive than mentorship. So yeah, that's what we're playing with. We literally just launched it today.
Perfect day to film. It's like, right? It's the ripple effect. Okay, how can I create like a little mini army of like all of these brain healers? Like we all function under this like roof and believe. I think that's like really cool. And you said something that sparked, a question within myself was, why is personalized concussion care so important? Because when you just said that, I was like, oh, nobody talks about personalized. It's just kind of like, we follow this boom, 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 boom. If you don't fall under that, we don't know.
Every brain is different. Everyone comes into a concussion with a different brain, with a different past, with different coping skills, with different knowledge. And so how can you take person A and person B, say you have person A that comes in and they've been like super big in personal development. They already know what nervous system regulation is. They have a routine in place, like they are doing all the things. And really for them, like they have a strong support system, their mindset's on point. They have a really strong internal toolbox, particularly systems. We know what is happening, but we know they have support. We approach that person in one way versus person B comes in and they're coming from a trauma background. They already live a very high stress life. They have a minimal support system. They have to work. You can't approach that person the same way you approach person A. So it's absolutely impossible. Even say they had the exact same physiological presence. This would never happen, but say they had the exact same physiological presentation. And by that, I'm talking about like the same vision issues or the same neck issues or the same like vestibular dizzy issues. Say that was exactly the same. And say that the rehab that I would do for those systems is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in from such different places, it wouldn't work the same.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other pieces with person B that foundationally need to be addressed for that rehab to be as impactful.
No, that's cool to hear you say that, because it's necessary and it's important. Like you said, each brain injury is different, each brain is different, each person is different. It's never going to be cookie cutter, unfortunately.
It'd be so much easier if it could be.
I know it would. It would be so much easier for that. That I never, until I literally went to your website and was digging through and then you just said it there, like I've never heard a doctor or or physical therapist or anybody talk about how, okay, well, let's talk about your lifestyle. Let's talk about what you know or what you don't know and how can I help you build a toolkit.
Yeah. there's been examples where people have come into my clinic, and I talk about this in nerds too, where it's like 1000% they have vestibular dysfunction that needs to be rehabbed, but it's not the right time. And it's not the right time because they don't have the space in their life to even begin to do the work that it's going to integrate. And so we need to create a foundation where they can actually have some space first to then do the rehab. And so it's that strength of being able to really look at a person not as a symptom, not as a label, not as a diagnosis, but to be able to step back and look at the whole person and who they are and what the demands on them and their time is and what their life has looked like, to be like, okay, what is the best way we're going to help you move forward for this? 1000% people fly out to see me because I'm really great at the multi-system physiology integrated piece. So if you come to an intensive with me, that's happening.
We're getting into it.
There's no question. But there's also, depending on the person, like we're layering in like those deeper like mindset questions. Like I'm knocking on the door of like, what are you saying to yourself? And what is this, how, like, what does this mean to you? Like those pieces get worked into everything. And I think I am very comfortable going to those hard to talk about, deep, emotionally taxing, vulnerable places with my clients. And I think it's because I've been in those places myself as the person going through it. And so, not from a concussion, mine was from trauma, but I'm very, very comfortable being in that space with somebody and supporting you through it. Now, do I recommend actual therapists? Yes, of course. I'm an amazing counselor or a social worker or a psychologist, because like that, like I know my limits, but I'm also very okay to help you reframe thoughts and to help identify patterns and those pieces. Not every therapist is, and that's okay. But also, I think what's important from a as a clinician perspective is, if you're still recognizing that it's an area of importance in your client, then you also need to have a strong referral network to support with the referral. So I always say a concussion clinician, when I talk about concussion literate providers, I swear I made the term up, by the way.
We're coining it.
But yeah, I feel like I coined this concussion literate provider as my thing, because now other people are using it. And I'm pretty sure I made that up. But anyways, or I stole it from someone else. I don't know.
I'm here. Let's just coin it. You did it.
Let's just coin it. Okay. So what I always say is a concussion literate provider is a provider who, if you go see them, it's not that they know how to do everything, but it's that they have the ability to see and identify the pieces that need to be taken care of, and either can address it themselves or can refer you to the right profession and person to do it. So it's not that they need to do everything, but they are someone who very clearly understands the profiles and the concepts and the components that make up what someone has to go through on a concussion recovery and can guide you.
Yeah. No, it's really cool to hear you say that. You know, it's been like 7 years since my brain surgery, and just this year I started getting my hands into PTSD. And that was something, I've seen so many doctors and, physical therapists and all these people have helped me in different ways, 100%, not undermining any of them or their work. But the PTSD factor has been the heaviest thing to confront right now. And it's been just such an emotional, messy ass journey that I was like, what is going on? But it's just like, yeah, the PTSD factor, people are trying to get back to living their lives, which could be being an athlete, which could be being active. And, my case, for example, was I'm triggered every time I go snowboarding, and I love snowboarding. And how can I reframe this so my body isn't so fight or flight?
Yeah. And it's not the PTSD's a bitch. Like so that was me, right? Like I did a lot of fucking work around my PTSD. And it's that piece of, I always say to my clients, like, I've never had a brain injury. I've had an acute concussion that I think probably healed in 3 days. And like, I cannot, and I will never say I fully understand what anyone with a brain injury is going through. I said, I can relate, I think, because when my PTSD was when I finally couldn't shove it under the rug long enough. So how there's that point where you're like, I know there's shit I need to unpack. Like, I know it's there. I know it's there. But life is okay right now, and I do not want to open Pandora's box.
No.
I'm just going to keep shoving it under the rug for as long as I can. So I was shoving it under the rug for a solid 17 years. And then it was like, then 2020 hit, and it was like, fuck you, Natasha. Like, you can't shove this under the box anymore. And it's like, I was having, like, it was nightmares, it was intrusive thoughts, my memory was absolutely horrible. I couldn't remember anything for like, you tell me something and I'd forget it. Brain fog, like, couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate. But for me, it was my PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found a therapist who did EMDR was my lifesaver. Like, everyone, there's so many different, I am an advocate for the therapies that are more somatic in nature, that don't force you to continuously talk.
Yeah, we don't need to keep going back.
Let's just not do that. So EMDR was for me, EMDR was a lifesaver. And I will, if you haven't experienced it yet, but if you have, I will remember so clearly the moment that I knew it was cleared.
Wow.
Like, we were in a session, and like I use the tapper. So if you have a concussion and you do EMDR, don't let them do eye movement. Don't do eye movement.
We'll just preface that.
We'll just say that. And even sometimes I could go on a science street. I'm not going to.
That's another episode. We'll bring you on for that.
But I remember so clearly being in this moment in this session, and it was like 21-year-old Natasha that was the one dealing with all the shit. And then there was 40-year-old Natasha, 39, I guess would have been at that time, 39-year-old Natasha. And it's like, I'm a very visual person. And so in this vision, and like while we're doing the tapping in the session, like old me met young me, gave young me a big hug, and we just like turned and walked into the distance, and it just faded into sunlight. And I came out of that session and I was like, I'm good.
Wow.
The words, like, I won't go into them here but like certain words used to trigger me, certain thoughts used to trigger me, and I could like have a conversation and say the word.
Wow. That's powerful.
I was like, I will never. So for me, EMDR was an absolute lifesaver.
No, it's, there's so many recipes for people for sure. And it is your own exploratory
absolutely
cruise that you're just going on. You're like, I'm buying a one-way ticket and I have no idea where it's headed.
I don't know where it's going
So
to go.
it's already laid out. The stops are laid out and I'm just going to go there. And yeah, but it's like, I have had a lot of people just be like, yeah, the PTSD of like going back into doing this thing that caused this injury. And I never really thought about it because, yeah, it was the monster under my bed that I was like, I don't want to look at it. Oh, God, I have to look at it. I'm like, shit.
I have to look at it and touch it and communicate with it
and be friends with it and share cookies with it and like then let it live under my bed and be cool with that. And like, yeah, it's the PTSD is something that, it's people are struggling with it for sure. And, somebody will hit their head again and think, like be put back to where they think they are, even if they're not. And our brain is such a powerful thing. So we can like really convince ourselves that we're having symptoms. Yeah, that's the most wild part about it, I feel like, is like you're just playing tricks on yourself at that point.
Yeah. Well, and I say too, I think this is also one of the most beautiful things when people have I always say I'm gonna lump PTSD into doing the deep work. Okay. So when I say like doing the deep work, I'm talking about like that really taking a reflective look at yourself, being open to seeing parts of you that you don't like, facing the hard traumatic past to be able to integrate it so it doesn't limit you anymore. Mm-hmm. And then being open to whatever growth of you that is going to emerge from this, right? So I always say when people, the work never stops, but there's periods where like we're in the shit or we're like, we're just like, we're doing good. So I would say when people are ready to do the deep work, it is one of the most courageous. Let's try that again. It is one of the most courageous, what are words, and bravest thing you can do. And it is the biggest gift you can ever give yourself.
No, that's inspiring to, and for anyone listening who is going through the shit, like you're walking through the thick mud and you know it's there, you know it's looming, and it's just like, you know, you want to keep continuing to live a fulfilled life. So it's just like, yeah, and it took me 7 years and you 17 to be like, I'm going to look at it. There's something so motivating about that too. And, you know, the more you hear people talking about that, the more it normalizes it of like, okay, it's not going to go anywhere. And, you know, it's just a wild ass journey.
Well, and I love to, like, when people then start, so we have a baseline, right? Of like, so let's talk about symptoms for a second.
I was hoping we go there.
Like, yeah. So like, we know like your baseline. So we know your baseline symptoms, right? And then someone's like, okay, I'm going to start working with a therapist and we're going to start to do EMDR or somatics or whatever it is you're going to do, right? We talked about, there's a plethora of tools out there for it. And this never fails. Well, then people like, oh my gosh, I did this session. My symptoms are through the roof. Like, this is terrible. Da, da, da. I'm like, you know exactly why your symptoms are flaring.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly what you need to do. Now, that doesn't mean like if you go full, like EMDR would wipe me on my ass for at least the day and sometimes the next day, hands down. Now, it shouldn't wipe you out for a week. And if it is, you need to have a discussion with your therapist on the intensity or the depth or the duration that you're going into in a session, because it might be too much. But I think the beautiful thing is knowing, like, when you start something like EMDR or you start something like, what is it? There's brain spotting, there's rapid resolution therapy, there's holy F, there's tons.
Yeah, there's dictionary. Yeah, it's a dictionary full.
It is. Yeah. But when you start on that journey and you notice a flare in your symptoms, you know exactly where it's coming from.
It's like the body keeps the score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that piece of, don't let that scare you from doing the work, because it is truly that, again, within reason. But it is also a sign that it's like, you know you haven't hit your head. You know you haven't added a crap ton to your life. You're taking on this mammoth, courageous task of looking inside and processing some really hard things. And when we talk about sometimes why the symptoms flare, it's not because you hit your head, but it's because of your nervous system. And your nervous system is ultimately trying to protect you. And if your nervous system is trying to protect you and it doesn't want you to have to feel the things or work through the thing, well, what's one way it knows to protect you? Well, it makes you feel like a bag of shit so you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Right?
So that is the best way to put it. It's like so simple. You're like, yeah, that adds up. And it's like, yeah, it's so sad. And it's been such a beautiful journey, you know, now that I've been looking at the monster, but it's been the messiest. Like, it's
absolutely.
I thought I did the work by surviving, conquering, you know, quote unquote, I thought I conquered. Yeah. And now it's like, no, my brain was just protecting myself.
But also, don't take that away from yourself either, though, Kelsey.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, because in that moment, you had to survive.
I did what I had to.
You did what you had to do. Mm-hmm. And so, never take that away from yourself. It's like you're at a different phase now where it's like we talked about already, like, universe has like divine timing. And it's like, now you're at the phase where you're like, okay, yeah, now I can do the next bit.
For sure. And it takes time. Like, that's something too, you know, when people hit their head, they're just like, I just want to be better now. And, you know, I was one of those people too. And now, yeah, I don't think I would have been able to do this work until now. Like, it took me 7 years to be able to
17 years.
I'm 17, you know, like you can't explain why your brain did what it did, but it is out of survival and protection, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it will take time, but it will, and it can heal, where I feel like people are just kind of like, you know, it's like an unfortunate accident to hit your head, and then people are like, I want to get back. And like, why am I acting like this? And it's like all these like uncertainties and questions and things that nobody really has the answer to.
Yeah. And I think the other important thing when we talk about, like, because you're so right, it's like, I want to be back to normal, or like, I want to be done. It's like, I think what is important to also know is like, however long it takes to heal doesn't have to equal the length of time it took you to get there to be ready to heal.
Yeah.
So like, it took me 17 years because then my body was like, you don't have a fucking choice anymore, Natasha, you're doing this.
You have to wake up.
It did not take me 17 years to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a year.
For sure.
right? So I think that's also really important to remember is I think we need to go in to any of this work that we do, whether it's the concussion work or whether it's, well, to me, this is all concussion work. So what I mean by the whole person, but
no,
it's like,
how do you hear this? Because this is a whole side of it that nobody.
Yeah. So it's like whether we're like approaching the PTSD side of it or we're doing like the physiologic rehab, whatever piece we're working on that makes you as the whole person. I think it's also really important that we go in curious, open, without expectation. Because when we start, I mean, the expectations obviously we'd like to improve. But when we start having and setting expectations of like, if I'm not better by this time or and it doesn't allow for that freedom of play. It doesn't allow for uncertain circumstances to come in. It doesn't allow for that. And then you're setting yourself up for like, well, if I'm not better in 3 months, then you start to pick away at that. Versus if you go in being like, I'm open, I know I'm going to heal. I don't exactly know what my journey is going to look like yet, but I am open and curious to what's going to unfold from this. You're just putting yourself in a better receptive place. Ask the questions though. Like, if you ever have a therapist that says you can't ask questions, fire your fucking therapist. Like,
I did my first one I left. He basically said I wouldn't snowboard again. I said, okay, well, fuck you. I'm gonna go. And yeah, like you don't settle for that.
No. And it's like, I just did a consult with someone. She was the most lovely woman. And she's younger. She asked me, same thing, it's exactly kind of like your story, loves her sport, does not want to go back to it competitively at all, but would love to be able to play in like a rec league.
Yeah.
And her therapists at this point have been like, I don't think that's safe. And I was like, you're 28 years old.
Yeah. You have a whole life to live.
I am not going to be the person to tell you that you're never going to go back to this sport for the next 60 years of your life. Like, could you imagine? Well, you were told that. Like, could you imagine? Like, if someone told me that I would never be able to do a certain, I mean, and I know it happens, and there are certain circumstances where, but I'm just like, no. And like, and I've run to people who's like, my therapist says I can't ask questions, and I'm like, then fire your therapist.
Yeah, I mean, it's that simple. You know, a part of healing as well, and like on your journey in general, is believing in yourself and advocating for yourself. So it's like, I just feel like finding doctors is like speed dating, where you're just like, okay, it's just not really working out. Like, I'm just gonna go, like, and on to the next. And it's exhausting sometimes, and you get over it, and it's not a good match. But before you know it, you find one that you're like, okay, this works. Yeah, it's working. And I don't know. I mean, that's like, it's a doctor is going to hear that and be like, she just compared finding a doctor to speed dating, but
I love it. But it's so true, right? Like, you could meet, and I say that, my mentors know, like, I am not the smartest person in the room, many a times, right? Like, the people I surround myself with and like my mentors, they're like walking encyclopedias.
Yes.
Like, the amount of knowledge that they know to the detail that they know it boggles my brain. I'm just like, I would like a quarter of your brain, please.
Literally,
just give me like a smidgen of it. But not every client works well with them. Like, it's more than just the knowledge. The connection and the rapport you feel with someone and what is important to you as a person matters. Like, if you are an individual who feels safe, let's use like, so that's right, you create safety in our nervous system by someone who is very professional, wears a suit, has the lab coat, is very like in that doctor mindset, can answer every question to the detail, knows what they're talking about, that type of person, you're probably going to hate me because I'm very relaxed and I'm very open, and we talk about things beyond just the science, and I work in a t-shirt and Lululemon pants. Like, you know what I mean?
Comfort. She loves comfort.
But all that matters is that you find who you work well with.
Mm-hmm.
It's why I'm just like, yeah, when someone typically asks me, like, I'm stuck, where do I start? Honestly, my foundation, because they're usually asking from a symptom perspective of like, what can I do to rehab my symptoms? My starting point is we need to find someone, and we talk about what they've done in the past so far. But usually that recommendation is we need to find you someone who can do a multi-systems assessment to figure out what is working well, what's not working well, and what's talking and playing nice together and what's not. And then from there, we can kind of build out your rehab plan. That is kind of always from a science perspective, where I guide people. And so, but even in saying that, I'm like, I don't care what healing modality you use if it works for you.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
For sure. And if anyone who is listening to this is kind of new on their healing journey, and I think it is the best way to put it is you will start to develop a recovery toolkit or like a brain toolkit. And I guess a transition right here could just be like, where do you recommend people start on building a recovery toolkit if it's kind of like overwhelming and they like don't know where to even begin? Yeah.
So I do think a piece of that is, so if you are new to this, like getting in with a provider who knows what they're doing ASAP. So, and when I say like concussion literate providers, like that is what I mean. So it was really interesting to me the first day someone reached out to me and was like, hey, Natasha, do you have any concussion nerds in Ohio? And I was like, I don't. I'm like, my goal is like, let's get them in every city and every state and every province in the country. Okay. That sounds good. There's big goals.
I'm still here. I'm about to be trained.
But it is that piece of finding a provider so step one is like team, right? And really finding a provider who can help you understand why some of the symptoms that you're having. So both from when I say like that multi-systems assessment. So when we talk about concussion, we know there's 7 profiles of concussion. What are your profiles and how are they interacting, and what needs to be rehabbed to help see change in the like actual physiological functioning of your brain. So that's like, if you don't have that provider, like let's find you that provider as a step 1. Step 2, there's this piece between, I talk about, we still need to have tools to manage while we rehab. So then it's looking at what in your life are you struggling with? Okay, so someone who is struggling significantly with like cognitive something, so like memory, organization, like forgetting things, then I will say, let's connect you with an OT so that you can create some strategies so you have tools to help you with memory while you're doing your rehab. So that might, and then that OT might be like, let's use a planner, or like, let's have a whiteboard by your door before you leave that you check in on like, I'm not an OT. They create fabulous strategies. Then it might be like, well, I deal with like every individual concussion, like overstimulation. Okay. What are the tools do you know what overstimulates you the most? Because some people it's like sound sensitivity is like a huge piece. Other people, it might just be when I do too much. So then it's like, well, what are the tools we can use to support you not getting overstimulated when you need to function in your world? Noise canceling headphones, sunglasses or Theraspecs or filtered lenses, loop earplugs. Sometimes like wearing more compression style clothing because it feels like you have that hug, right? Having tools and strategies, knowing how to palm, knowing breathing, so starting to build these things for yourself that you know can be helpful in these scenarios. Truthfully, surrounding yourself with community of uplifting people. I say that because I think every Facebook group is started with the best of intentions. But if you are in a support group, say, or a Facebook group where it is, woe is me, here's my terrible life, here's how my symptoms have disrupted me, here's how my symptoms were today, and there's never any shift in that mindset to here's what I can learn, here's what I can shift, here's how I can change it for next time, get out. Because it's just going to drag you down. So having connection, okay, I'm going to shamelessly plug here for a second. Having connection to someone like myself in the mini school membership, for example, where you can directly ask me a question, or I know who's in that community and how uplifting they are, right? Or being able to know that you have a group call twice a month where you can ask a question and I can answer it. Finding some scenarios like that can be also a really helpful tool in your toolbox that you can tap into when you need it.
No,
I don't know if that answered the question at all.
No, that answers the question. I mean, I love asking, everybody that, because it's going to be different for every person that we're talking to here at the headquarters, and it's cool to hear everyone's take, because what might work for somebody else might not work for the next. So it's like, what can you sprinkle in? And obviously for you, that's why you created what you did. You created this thing so it can be their toolkit, and let's plug that here, and we'll make sure we link everything for that, because that is you're the one that you spent all that time creating it. You put all of your heart and soul into it, so people aren't alone. in doing so. So it's just like, yeah, like, what a good place to start. $14 a month. Okay. That's great. So yeah, I mean, I think anybody listening, like, definitely look into that. That it sounds like it's a full circle safety net to help you embark.
Yeah. Let's make sure you're on the right path and not spiraling, and can support you with tools and resources that, yeah.
No, I think that's incredible. And I mean, it's been fun. It's funny. I sometimes just like to have a bunch of questions down, but our conversation just has been so organically flowing that I'm just like looking at it being like, did we? Yeah. I think we got like literally everything, because your work like seamlessly fits into all of it. And yeah, I guess, I am definitely going to have you back at the headquarters, because
Anytime.
we could talk for hours about all of this stuff, and I love hearing your take on everything. And I guess if somebody who is like in the thick of it right now, like, do you have any words of hope for somebody?
Well,
Loaded question.
No, but it's always like, it's also the most important one. And it's that piece of like, please know you're not alone, and that there is someone else in this space and who's going through what you're going through. And I don't say that to take away from your journey, but to know that like there's someone out there that gets you. And it's that piece of like, I see you and I know this is fucking hard, but know that this is not how it has to be. This is not your new normal. You 100% can change. The hard part is obviously finding people. Reach out. Like, don't be afraid to, I think the biggest thing, I tangent all the fucking time. There was a point in my life when I was going through some stuff where I said to a friend, I was like, I feel like I'm a burden. I feel like I keep coming to you because I'm stuck in the same shit and I can't find my way out of it. And I don't want to keep coming to you with the same things. I feel like I'm burdening you. And she was like, you are never a burden. She's like, you are like one of my best friends, and that is what friends are for. She's like, you are not, will not, and never have been a burden, and please don't ever think that. And I think when we get to the point where we do feel that way, that's when we close off and stop reaching out. Don't stop reaching out.
Yeah.
Do not stop reaching out. Reach out to random people like me on Instagram. My DMs, like, I have more conversations in my DMs than I probably should.
No,
but
like,
saying, yeah, right? Like, there are people who will ignore you, and there are people who truly just want the best for you. And just don't stop reaching out.
Yeah.
And know that this is not the way it has to be.
Yeah, it's isolating. I feel like that's like the number one thing, with any concussion is it's isolating. You feel crazy because you're just like, I have no idea what's going on here. And yeah, it's feeling like sharing that with people is heavy because you don't even know exactly what's going on. It's so complex, but it's just like everything that you just said is like very critical. Like, don't fall into that spiral. Keep reaching out. If you fall in it, ask for help out of it. Like, nobody wants you to suffer alone.
And I think too, if you have a few good friends, almost setting up like cues, right? So I had a couple girlfriends, and so when I was going through, so this is when I was going through my separation, I just said to them, I said, because I'm usually a very communicative person, and I just said to them, I'm like, if I go MIA and you don't hear from me for like 4 days, can you just reach out to me, please? Like, just check in, because that's not normal behavior for me often, or at least like with these friends it was. And so it was just that piece of like, what am I trying to say? I set myself up to help prevent the spiral. Because with these girls, it was like, if I haven't reached out to you for 4 days, like, can you just check in? And that's saying, and literally all I needed was a check-in. Hey, thinking of you. How you doing over there? And it was like, that was enough for me to be like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, or like you might have like with your best friend, like have a code word. Be like, how are you today? Be like pineapple.
Yeah. No,
right?
mine's ravioli.
There we go. Right? And so you can also, with those friends that are like those close friends, like you can have code words. So where like you don't have to like dive into everything that you're feeling. But if it's like, when I say pineapple, like I'm in the thick of it and like I could just use a fucking hug.
Mm-hmm. And some ice cream. You're like,
and some ice cream. Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah.
Still. Ben and Jerry's. Anything chocolate.
Yeah.
Also good.
Yeah. No, it's really, that's just the reality of being a human. And again, yeah, anyone who hits their head, it's an accident. Like, you didn't plan for that to happen. And it's obviously really hard for you to walk through that. And, the fact that you do not have to suffer. Not alone.
Not alone.
No, I love those words, That's like another one that I ask everybody, because I'm just like, anything for hope. And
Yeah.
I don't know, people need to hear that for sure. And I guess, do you have anything that you want to cover or anything to sprinkle in?
Oh my gosh, I feel like we've just talked I feel like we've talked about a whole bunch of stuff.
We did. I mean, that's like the goal. Because I just was like, I don't want these long. I want these for someone who is suffering in their recovery journey, and maybe they can't listen to 3 hours of a podcast to learn. So it's like how can we give this to people digestible? Maybe they can only go for 30-minute walks, and now they can break that up, and let's give them something to learn there. And obviously we're going to bring you back on.
I would love to come back anytime
and talk about everything, because there's so much we can dive into. And even if that means just people walking into your clinic, what could that look like? And that's where everyone should. I guess where can people find your work?
Oh gosh,
I'll link it to make it easy.
The easiest spot is honestly Instagram. You can send me a DM. We're switching some stuff around. Bear with us, but at some point in the next month, you'll be able to. Everything that I just talked about will be in my one spot on Instagram, and then I'll send you my my website.
Yes,
my website. There's contact forms through the website that come directly to my email inbox as well, and all that stuff too. So.
Yeah, we'll make sure we'll link website, Instagram, podcast, everything in the bio of this episode, because it's you're somebody who they can trust, who they can start with, who they can go to, and it's thank you. Thanks for being there, because that's nobody knows how to start this journey, and having somebody lend a helping hand or an ear to do so is I think it's life or death to walking down that recovery road.
Yeah. We want you to start off on the right foot.
Yeah. So thank you for everything that you do. And everybody, please make sure to check her out. Please check the bio. Join. I'm even going to join the membership. I'm I want to be in the mini school. I want to, it's because that's, what you created there is really special, because when people Google anything about the brain on the internet, it is so daunting. You just want to snap your computer in half and walk away. And it's just you have made it digestible, easy to understand, relatable. And that's, I think, a whole nother episode in itself, is how daunting that is. So it's just if you are struggling, the $14 a month, that is a good place for you to start.
Side note, if you join for 6 months, you get one of those months free. So
that's good.
Even then, $10 a month then, maybe, if you do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I am going to sign up. It's just no matter where you're at in your concussion journey, it is one of those things that it's just at least for me, where I've been I might heal, but it's going to forever be a part of me. And it's just what do I need to put in my toolbox?
Absolutely.
It's just you can never have too many tools in the toolbox, and you can just keep getting the Costco size bag to put more tools in, It's just now you have a wagon full of tools.
A wagon full of it dragging behind you.
Yeah, it's that.
Let me hear, use this tool, and then you support people around you and all the things. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's I don't know. I'm excited for everybody to hear this episode and to dive more into everything that you have going on, because as soon as I was researching, I was I am amped up for all of this shit. I'm this is going to be a fun podcast. We're definitely going to bring you back on. And if anybody has any questions, definitely reach out to Natasha, and good person to have in your corner.
Thank you. This was a blast, and I will happily come back, and we'll see you in mini school.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for taking time, and just for being here. We're stoked to have you at the headquarters.